Hey everyone, I'm Beetika, the senior product designer for the pipeline execution team. I'm recording this video to provide an overview of a borrow request that I was on, during which I worked on a feature called GitLab Dependency Firewall. This was for the package registry team. Um, and I just wanted to give an overview of how I made progress through the project because I started at a place where I had literally no knowledge about the premises. So I had to build upon the foundation in terms of my knowledge and understand what the problem was all about, and at the same time use all the data that I had at hand, make sense of them, and decide on the next steps. So mostly going to be an overview of the tools, frameworks that I used in the process. And towards the end, I'll provide a walkthrough of the prototype that we eventually arrived at. All right, so getting started. This is a really good blog post that Tim Rizzi, the product manager of the package registry and the whole package stage, wrote about the feature. And sorry for that. He, in this blog, he's trying to he's communicating why it's so critical for us at GitLab to be looking at this feature. It's going to help organizations avoid supply chain software attacks by warning them or blocking the download of packages, dependencies based on project's policy. We already have some features in GitLab to check the source code for vulnerabilities. You must be aware of that already, but there's none for packages. So firewall, it's going to help in running extra validations on packages specifically. The next question that I should be addressing here is why packages? Why is it so critical to run a check against packages? How much of difference is that going to make? So first of all, packages, going by the definition of what role do they play in the whole software development life cycle, they're a collection of files and directories required to build software, and eventually the software product itself, it also needs to be built into packages for easy distribution. So it it plays a really important role. Without using packages, it's not possible to build a software. And that makes it very critical, or also a very easy channel for malicious items to get into the source code. Uh, Because if we happen to download a malicious package or one with a lot of known vulnerabilities, it's eventually going to make way into the repository and can easily impact the supply chain of the software. So moving ahead, the next thing that we did was we started off, Tim led a research from here on that was part foundation, part problem validation. And we got to speak with a lot of internal teams here at GitLab who are working on related problems, but not exactly keeping packages at the center of the focus. Then we spoke with the AppSec team who are regularly looking at the vulnerabilities and security threats in GitLab itself. Then we spoke with a set of large customers and also some users that we recruited through our normal recruit channel using a common screener, I guess. And I took all of that information. On top of that, I also put a layer of competitor evaluation. I looked at who are the key players today in the industry who are setting a benchmark in terms of user experience and what are the things that we can learn from them. Um, and looking at this whole large data set, I performed an analysis and I arranged the findings from the analysis in a sequence as answers to specific questions that I had in my mind. And this is what it looks like. So the first question, I would only be touching upon certain important ones here because there's a lot to go through. And I just want to provide a background about why we made certain decisions and what evidence supported those. So I can eventually go to the prototype and show what the final result looks like and what's the what's the thought process behind it. So the first question that was on my mind was, how are customers handling their packages today? Because this problem is not novel. It's not like someone has identified this for the very first time. It's something that the industry has been grappling for some time now. So what is it that people are doing? What are the tools they're using? What are the gaps that they're experiencing in the offerings that of the choice, and so on. So some important things that we learned was a lot of users shared that metadata analysis alone can get them far enough in terms of identifying risky dependencies. It doesn't have to be like very deep analysis when it comes to curation of incoming packages, newly published packages. Just metadata alone can give them a wide set of information that can help them put a flag on a package that this one looks suspicious and it's best to like put it aside. Then the next one is deep inspection is still required besides curation to fully tackle repo confusion attacks. So how users are looking at this particular solution is not like a one-point solution that's going to solve all problems related to supply chain attack, but rather a layered solution. So they expect that this can be placed at the point when packages are making like entering a repository, but at the same time, it there can be a situation that a package does not have known vulnerabilities on the day when the publishing is happening. And so nothing is caught when it runs against the set of checks in the policy. But later, when the vulnerabilities are identified, there has to be a mechanism available locally, like some sort of a continuous scan that catches such packages at a later stage or sees at a later stage what a package is trying to accomplish inside a project. Is it trying to do something that it is not authorized to do? So those things can only be found at a later stage. And so, like, there is a necessity of layered solution here. Then the next question is, what's not working? Um, so first of all, one thing that we continued to hear time and again was the reports, the vulnerability reports and dashboards. They are very overwhelming, stressful to deal with, and they fail to communicate the priority and actionable insights. And we just wanted to be sure that when we are building something, we address this gap so that our solution is usable and useful at the same time. The next point is a tool that does not provide an output that is machine readable format is useless because the bulk of information, if the output is not machine readable, that implies that it would be really hard to kind of bring in some sort of automation in the picture. And that makes it very difficult to deal with all the data that the team gets. Then another really important point that I wanted to touch upon was when I tried to make a sense of why should GitLab solve this problem. So something that I found looking at different verbatims across interviews, then also competitor evaluation was users look to GitLab for all things security related. Using third-party tool for intercepting malicious packages, dependencies, doesn't enable them to integrate that information in GitLab and see the bigger picture. And that's where we can come in now through this, through delivering this feature. There are many other sections such as what do they expect from the firewall that GitLab would be working on? Then what are the workarounds that we use today in GitLab, outside GitLab? And then how would the firewall, how is it expected to work like when it's in action? Then what the policies could look like? Who looks at the data? Because it's really important to understand who are the people, who are the personas, with what role would be actually acting on the insights that we are going to present. And eventually, what are the learnings that we can take from our competitors? And also, like, what should go as the first iteration and what can follow later? Well, keeping all of this information in mind, this really helped me in forming the foundation and making progress to the next step, which was laying down the user flow. This particular format has been working pretty well for me. And what I do here, the inspiration, I have to really mention that the inspiration for this came from something that Julia did a few months ago, and also what Emily used for mapping. I just brought all of those together, put a few layers of more extra information on top of that, and formed something that has been helping me since a couple of projects, I would say, because it really solidifies all the conceptual data, provides a visual for the team to get together and discuss things. Um, so this has been a very helpful framework for me to initiate discussions with the team, especially when we are trying to like flesh out the very early details of a feature of a concept. So what I did here was we first discussed about what the job to be done is going to be, because unless we are aligned on that, we would not be thinking at the same level. And then once we had an agreement and an alignment on that, then I broke the whole thing into four user flows that were very apparent, that were well supported by the information that I received through the research interviews. And then it was just broken down further into user actions, background processes, then what errors are users or system likely to encounter in the process, and eventually how would the whole thing translate into workflows. So this particular part. I mean, the whole thing was completely revamped in the process of discussions and for good. And eventually, this part really helped me in getting started with the prototype, which I'm about to get to. Uh, let's see. I want to reset this. Yeah. Okay, this is perfect. So we already have a page called policies under secure, where all the other security policies are sitting today. And Camellia is mostly responsible for working on the other features which are available here. So our thought was that we should not increase the number of touch points when it comes to policies and use what we have. I am still working on the illustration. This is something that I have proposed, but it's yet to be merged. I'm in touch with Julia about it. So we have added the style here that says dependency firewall policy. And on clicking on this policy, this form appears that is very similar to the forms that you could see for the other policy types today, just that we have tailored this particular section for conditions and action to communicate what we intend to do through the dependency firewall policy. So in GitLab, we have support for a couple of package formats like NPM and Maven. So there's an option like if users want to create a policy or add a policy specific to a format, or if they just want it to be generic. So it says when dependency firewall runs on all package formats and finds vulnerabilities and package matching the following criteria, these are the criterias, then the action that is to be taken is quarantine the package. And the criterias are here. We can select what's the minimum severity of vulnerability that a package has. And then if a package is new, we're still like debating whether or not to keep this, but this is something that's definitely going to be a part of the MVC. Like users can decide if a package has minimum vulnerability info or medium um, upwards, like medium plus, info plus, just quarantine it. And that's what this policy is going to do. So, but we also had to provide some sort of escape hatch because many times the policy might not be the best one to decide the validity of a package. And in such conditions, we wanted um, a user to be able to take an action to change the status. And here you can control like which rules should be able to do that. And this is also something that was very clear through the user research. So once the policy is added here, Then, I mean, in real scenario, it's going to be added through an AMR, a merge request will be created, and that's how the policy is going to get merged. But after that happens, it's going to show up on the policies page. Then from here on, when we go to the package registry, currently what happens on the package registry page is there's just a single list called packages, and all the packages are visible. But the proposal here is to add another tab that says quarantine. And let's say if users have come to the packages page and the packages tab is open, they should be able to see in the form of a warning, like what are the new packages that have been quarantined, because it's critical. Packages are critical. They can impact different pipelines. They can impact different processes in the software development lifecycle. So it's very important for us to highlight this information. And once they go to the quarantine tab, this is going to go away because now they have viewed the quarantine packages. And here is an example of what the detail page for a quarantine package can look like. So once they're here, they would see that there's a badge called quarantine, and then a small widget that provides the status of all the vulnerabilities detected by firewall. And this is an option to view all. And in the detail section, the audit log is going to show a new event saying firewall scans quarantined this package these many minutes ago. So if they're interested in viewing all the details, they can just click here and be directed to this particular tab. That's sort of a shortcut to get here. And this page has all the vulnerabilities listed, irrespective of the status, irrespective of whether or not they relate to a dependency within the package or not. But let's say if they're interested to see that what are the vulnerabilities that are specifically related to specific dependencies in a package. For that use case, we have added this tab here called dependencies. And so every package has a dependency. Not every packages have their dependencies, just like packages themselves are dependencies for certain projects. Um, and here there has not been a good way for users to like view what are the dependencies of a package. Like if you go to the page today, the detail page today, there is no information about this particular section. And through this effort, we are also thinking that we will introduce this. So here they will find a more like direct connection between certain vulnerabilities and the exact component in the dependency that it relates to, so that they get some insight into how they can act on it, and they get a better idea of how this is going to impact their different processes so that they can be prepared for it. Yeah. And of course, like I mentioned before, we had to provide an escape hatch because system cannot always be right. Sometimes there needs to be human intervention. So for that particular use case, there's an option here available for roles configured to mark a packet as safe. Once something is marked as safe, the quarantine status goes away. And this will be available in the packages tab, and also be available to all the processes within GitLab to use. All right, so that's what the update is. And for the next step, this is going to go through a solution validation. And from there, if we see the need to make any changes to the proposal, that will be done. And then the team will get together to discuss about how to break the whole thing into iterations. We have a really good idea so far about what the most critical parts. So we sort of have a decent plan for MVC, but it would be really good to revalidate our thoughts so that we can have a higher confidence on our decisions. Yeah, and if you feel that this concept in any way relates to anything that you're currently working on, please, I would encourage you to get in touch with the package registry team and Tim Rizzi so that you can discuss out the details. And that's all. Thank you.